Okay, so hi, I'm Cameron Stevens. I live in San Antonio, Texas. I am 19 years old, and I was diagnosed with celiac disease when I was 4 years old. No one else in my immediate family has celiac disease, although my great aunt had it, I believe. I also have type 1 diabetes and hypothyroidism, which are both also autoimmune diseases as well as celiac disease.
Hi, my name's Audrey Hackett. I'm 15 years old, and I live in Fort Worth, Texas. I was first diagnosed with celiac disease when I was about 3 or 4 years old. That was about 2005, and I've been eating gluten-free ever since. No one else in my family has celiac disease, at least that we're aware of, but my mom does eat gluten-free because she's intolerant, which basically means she can eat gluten, but it still upsets her stomach, but it doesn't have as negative an effect as someone with celiac disease does. But she's only been doing that for about 7 years.
Hi, my name is Georgia Wright. I'm 13 years old. I live in Forney, Texas, and I was diagnosed with celiac disease when I was 2 years old, and I'm the only one in my family that has celiac, actually.
For the first 4 years of my life, I was just extremely sick. I couldn't keep food really in me. I looked healthy. That was the thing. Even though I wasn't healthy, I looked healthy. So we couldn't figure out what was wrong.
Just starting from the beginning, when I was 3, no one had a clue what gluten was. It was just becoming a thing, just being diagnosed and stuff. And luckily, I was diagnosed at such a young age, unlike multiple people I know that weren't diagnosed till they were 10 or 9 and ended up crazy sick in hospitals and all this stuff. So I was definitely lucky enough to get diagnosed at such a young age, which made everything a whole lot easier. But it was still hard.
So what was really difficult about it was that food, back in 2003, gluten-free food wasn't good. It wasn't a trend. It wasn't widely known. So it was extremely expensive and also extremely not good, except for very few things. So, my parents spent thousands of dollars on food that we had to throw away because it just wasn't good.
There weren't really any gluten-free companies. There weren't restaurants that held gluten-free food. There weren't a lot of places that knew what gluten was.
Dining out is definitely a challenge still, even today, because I'll be like, do y'all have gluten-free? And they're like, no. So then I have to go to another place, or they don't even know what gluten is.
School wasn't too rough unless we had experiments that involved food, and I couldn't do it because it was gluten. And it was
going to school when I was little was definitely kind of a challenge more than it is now, because I had to bring my lunch everywhere I went, especially to school, and I couldn't go through the lunch line, so I was very limited on things I could bring for lunch because there weren't very many options I had. And I'd have to put down this placemat that I had so that way I wouldn't get sick from other kids' foods that were around me. So I felt really weird doing that.
I would bring my own lunch in a little lunchbox, and that was that. On kids' birthdays, they would bring cupcakes and stuff to celebrate with the class, and I just had to explain why I couldn't do that, and that was kind of hard because, especially to first and second graders, that just kind of sounds scary to explain that you have a disease. A lot of them thought it was contagious. Not very fun. But as we got older, kids got more understanding and more accepting and realized that I was not going to explode if I ate gluten.
Going to parties was definitely difficult because I'd have to bring my own cupcakes or cookies or whatever because I couldn't eat what they were providing, which I hated because I was like, oh, I can't have it, sorry.
I have to bring my own cupcakes or my own dessert of some sort, and sometimes they would just get forgotten. That my mom had to call, and eventually I had to call ahead and be like, hey, what are you eating? Hey, what's the ingredients in it if you made it yourself? Hey, do I have to bring my own food? And I felt like I was interrogating everybody. So, celiac disease didn't really have an effect on my personal confidence in the fact that, oh, I'm different. It had an effect on my personal confidence because I felt like I was bothering people by asking them what was being eaten.
Generally, just kind of stayed away from sleepovers at other people's houses or birthday parties, but then again, I was kind of an odd kid. I didn't have many friends just because I was that weirdo that couldn't eat bread. So just if I went to birthday parties, I would eat before or after, and I was just very cautious of what I ate, and my mom would usually go in and warn the parent or whoever that was the adult there that I couldn't eat anything just for my health, just to make sure I was okay. And I never had any problems with that. The parents were totally understanding, and I never got sick, which was very good. Now, whenever the gluten-free fad diet started coming out where people wanted to eat gluten-free just because it was healthier, that made the world's difference. People were coming out with more gluten-free product, stores were carrying it more, restaurants were keeping gluten-free items on their menu, and people just had a more better understanding of what gluten was, that it was wheat, rye, barley, and some oats, not that it was just bread or cake. They knew specifically what it was. And that was kind of good and kind of bad.
I get that it became a trend. I get it. Being gluten-free when it's not your choice, it can really be annoying for somebody to be like, why don't you just cheat? Because, like, we can't cheat. With celiac disease, if you eat gluten, it can lead to infertility, cancer, a bunch of other things that can wound your body horribly. So we can't just cheat on our diets. It's not even a diet. It's what I call a lifestyle choice.
The service industry a lot, everyone just kind of assumes that you order something gluten-free and they just assume you do it just because, so they don't take the cross-contamination seriously. And sometimes I've even heard of people that they get gluten food just because the server was like, oh, well, they don't actually need gluten-free, it's fine. And that gets a lot of people sick, and that's a real occurring issue.
The biggest change that I've seen is the amount of people who know about it, and the amount of availability gluten-free, of how available gluten-free food is now, because it just wasn't before, and it was insane.
More people are starting to become more aware of it, and just like the celiac community, it has definitely grown since I was first diagnosed. When I was first diagnosed, barely anybody knew what it was. Barely anybody had any food because they didn't know what it was. I'd go to restaurants and they'd be like, I don't even know what gluten is. So I'm like, great. But now most restaurants have gluten-free menus that I can look on, which is definitely good because I can actually eat places now. And now I've become more aware of things I can eat and what I can't eat. So that's definitely good. But all my hopes for the future are that they make more gluten-free food and more places to eat.
I hope that people do understand that celiac disease is a real thing that needs to be taken seriously. But it has gotten a lot easier, especially in stores and stuff.
In the future, I do wonder if doctors will be able to create like a cure, a pill that you can take to, like, lactose intolerant people take. I don't know. But for now, I think I'm good with being celiac.